Okay, so we're going to start with, I'm going to show you this. The first part of this session is going to be about variable planes of attack on the downswing, just to give you an idea of why my theory on the backswing is not really all that important. Everybody has to recover. If your backswing is perfect, you have to recover and still have a solid downswing. Just because your backswing is good doesn't mean you're going to be a good player. And just because your backswing is poor, or what somebody would classify as poor, the positional wise, doesn't mean that you can't recover and play at the highest level. So I'm just going to go through here and show you just a few differences. Molinari, this would be pretty neutral, as you'll see. And I'm not going to split the screens up right now. I'm going to do a couple cool features here in a little bit, but right now I'm just going to just show you, give you a couple ideas of that would be considered pretty neutral in most people's standards. If you're one plane, maybe not, but anybody else, Tiger in 2000, that's pretty much exactly where he was in 2000, except it was just a whole different level of athlete we're talking about. So I'm going to go and I'm going to show you a few more as we go around. So if you want, and neutral would be if you just where the hands, you'll see right on the shoulder here. Tiger was more right where the butt of the club would be on the right shoulder, maybe just a little behind that, but that's pretty close. That relationship from the top of the where the shoulder is rotated to maybe just a few inches left. That's pretty much what we classified kind of like neutral. Again, it's not something I spend a lot of time on where they are at the top, but it is important to know where you're at, and if you're behind this, if you're behind this where he's at here. So if I move that over, if you're behind that with your hands and the player's above that, the way you start your downswing, how you recover is definitely different, no doubt about it. So we'll go to Carl Peterson here. Okay, you'll see as he goes back, Carl's backswing is close to the neckline. It's about as upright as you're going to see on the tour. I can't think of anybody. Jim Purick might be. He's definitely a little bit more above that, but where you would see Francesco a minute ago was considered neutral right here with the hand position. You can see that's the range that you're dealing with on the tour. And then if I take that, and then we're going to go over here. It's not the best camera angle. And now you can see the depth. Three extremes. So you'd have, very flat to, this would be neutral, where the hands would be here. And then you have upright would be anywhere from, say, the neck to in between the shoulder, similar to that right there. It's about where Carl was, somewhere in there. So if you look at that, and you put those side by side, you would see three totally different backswings. And then, and just one more, and we'll do one more here. So let's see. This is one of my favorite swings, just because it's very unique. He's playing on the Champions Tour now, if I can find him. That's Carlos Franco. He's very natural golf swing. But this again, I like this one just because it shows you the club head. If you can see this, there his club head is right over there. So I mean, you're talking all the clubs in these backswing frames are totally different. His hand position's fairly neutral. He's got obviously very long arms, but you can see that we draw that over. He's right. That's really neutral with the hands, but obviously the head's pointing way over here. And this guy was one of the best ball strikers on the planet. He's had some back issues and so forth, but I wanted to show you that just so you kind of know where the starting positions are. And so when you see the angles of attack, you're going to see a lot of different angles of attack to come into the ball as well. But then when we kind of go over the essentials of keeping the club head up and behind, I think it'll make more sense to what we're talking about. So going to go back to okay. So now we go back up to the top. Like we talk about, we really talk about, you know, what we consider neutral is where, and again, you don't have to be. This is going to prove it. You don't have to be here, if anything. But when you start down, the best ball strikers over time, they have that relationship of the top of the seam of the shirt here and that shaft. So it's deeper than that would be, you know, if the shaft, the head was pointing right here or over here at that point, that would be a no-go. So you'll see that there's always going to be a little angle, and some will flatten it out even more than that, as you'll see as we go. So that would be considered neutral when you're looking at your golf swing from down the line in that frame. As he works down to the baseline right as the club's right before the release, that would be considered like the baseline right there. So if you look at this, you'll see that there's a slight difference. The head's slightly behind that line. This is going to be hitting a little draw here, small draw. And you can see that the head is behind that line here. See? Try that again. And so that's the baseline. And so those are essentially we talk about keeping the club head up and behind the hands. And that has to happen, whether you're hitting a cut or not. And we can go over that on a different day, but even when you're hitting a cut, the club head is going to be staying behind the hands until it releases. So it's going to stay up in the air. That keeps you from losing what people call lag or angle and all that stuff. So let's go back up here to the top. So as you see, right here, you will see a difference. That would be considered neutral. So when we pull up another player here, I'll pull up Ogilvy, I guess it will be. Okay. So we'll go up to the top of the swing. Again, he's right over there, not too far. He's got a different wrist position, but he's really not. Just fairly neutral backswing right here. And so when he starts down, though, you're going to see a much steeper start down. So if you look where Molinari was, you would see this versus with Ogilvy. And we'll do a layover here in a minute where you can see that. So it's steeper than he's starting down, and you can see much steeper in this area. But the shaft, like we talked about last week in the videos that we do, the club head is still always up in the air, and then it's always behind the hands. So now it is definitely steeper though than what we would. I mean, you obviously got won a U.S. Open, played some great golf, but ideally, if we said, okay, what's neutral? When you get every time that club starts to change, when you got to realize when you're doing this video, because it is like we look at essentially, I would say 3 planes when we're coming down, 3 planes of attack. The first one being this relationship right here when your club's 3/4 down, right there. It just as it went from however long the swing was until you get the hands to shoulder height, that right shoulder height. We want that to be in line where the club head and everything would be in line. Doesn't mean it has to be. That's for sure. That would be one of the goals. When that club goes down, it's going to change angles. We would want that club through the middle of the spine. You can see, so that would be considered. So as that his hands are halfway down, if you look between his torso, right in the middle of his torso here, between his shoulders and his hips, we would want his hands on this line and the head on that one. That would be considered neutral. And this is neutral to what? That's neutral to the the highest level ball strikers over a period of time. It doesn't have to be. And then if you look at our third one, which he hits, obviously, which is the club's still behind his hand. His club's been releasing from here, but it's still behind his hands. And then you'll see it will come over and he hits a little bit of a kind of a pull here and probably missed that fairway slightly to the left. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a different downswing plane. So the angle of attack, you can see a little steeper here, but he still had the body circled like we talked about last week. So the whole body circled. The body's in time with the club really well. You can see I'm clicking frame by frame here. I'll go back a little bit. You'll see that his club and his body are moving together just very slowly, just kind of click, click, click like we talked about, where it's not spinning or the club head stopping and starting and all that stuff. It's just all in time, which is the main part of the sequencing of the swing. So let's go back here to okay. I've got a better view of Sergio here, but you'll see as he delivers, so as we look at hand height here, this goes to show you that even in the downswing, there's a lot of ways to do this. And that would be very flat, very much underplane. And so what has to happen is he has to, at some point, as that club's laying down like that, he's going to have to tip that head over, and that'll happen down but closer to the ball. And this is just his natural swing. But again, if you look at, we're talking about midway down, I'll show you. You would see the club head on that line. His hands are perfectly on that line. The club head would be under plane, and the hands would be on plane right here. Perfect would be if that club head, and this is actually an old video. He's much closer to that now than he used to be. And you will see, so here's the delivery, and you'll see it, if I can do it frame by frame. You can see the club head behind the hands on the baseline, and then it will work in to the left in the delivery. But you see, get the lines off here so this makes more sense. And we'll do some swing overlays. So this would be neutral. Would go right there, would be, if he was hands and the club would be on that would be what we consider neutral. That would be ideally how we would like all the players to deliver the club from, but we know that's not going to happen. But when you're training, you certainly want to be training in there and understand that is neutral, and it'll affect how hard you have to work through impact. So if you have it neutral starting down, you don't have to work as hard with your hand action and your pivot. It doesn't guarantee anything, but you won't have to work as hard with your body and hands. There'll be a little more sequence here. When you see him, he's having to really get that club spinning out with his body. But when he's spinning out with his body here, really twisting, he's having to maintain all that lag that he's got and stabilize that through impact. And he does phenomenal at it. Obviously, he does a great job of doing that. You can see here he has it. This is beautiful, and we'll discuss this here in a little bit. The face rotation relative to where the ball is at in the exit point, that's phenomenal. Whereas most players have already rolled that toe over the heel portion of the club, so their face rotation would look more like the toe like that. But you can see he's got great face control. So with all that lag and doing all that, and most of the reason why that is because that was his natural swing, and it was just the way he moved. That down cocking if down cocking, cocking your wrist. So if I show you face on what down cocking is, so I'll show you here. Down cocking is just the angle you create from basically here to here. That angle takes a tremendous amount of flexibility. That doesn't mean that if everybody had to do that to be a great player, then 90% of the tour wouldn't even be out there. Wouldn't be talking about them. And you don't. There's a lot of guys on the tour in the same exact position. And this is what I teach, where the club would actually be here, which is what I consider where you have more space. You don't have to deal with all this lag, because if you watch him, he has to bring all this in as he's unwinding. He has to know exactly where that is. and what his body's doing at all times. And you're really doing all the swings, but this one, it takes a much higher level, sense of awareness. And you can see he does a great job of lining all that up. But he's got the butt end of the club so close up to the ball, and it does limit some ball flight. Club's going to typically get a little steep sometimes, not steep as far as playing, steep as far as delivery, and there's a difference. And no, that won't be something we probably ever talk about, but there is a difference between the two. But he says everything you can see here is still in sync with each other, and so he's got great communication of where that sweet spot is and what his body's doing the entire swing, just like all these players do. But if you were trying to do this on your own and this wasn't your natural move, good luck. You have a hard time finding a golf course trying to create all that, and it's really not that important, as we'll show you some videos tonight. So, all right. So I'm going to go back to Molinari and show you a cool feature that we have. Okay. So Okay, so I know this looks weird, like you can't see it. What this is, it's an overlay. And so we can do this at the Academy, but you can even do it online if you ever send a video in and you want it done. We can talk about that another time. But what we do is we overlay your swing. So these aren't perfectly matched up, but it's pretty darn close. It's close enough. So anyway, I want to show you what this looks like. So this will give you a difference, kind of an idea of what the planes look like. So as you see, that this is going to be Jeff Ogilvy. So this is this player right here. This is Jeff Ogilvy, a taller player. So I'm going to set him up just like that, so he's a little bit taller. And I'm going to show you just their swing differences up to the top. And you can start to see where it's a little bit more neutral, with just slightly a bit more behind, which is just a little bit more neutral, like we talked about earlier. It's not much difference. But then here's where you'll start to see the differences. For the first one, right there would be neutral. Okay, so there's where you can start to see the differences where they're really attacking from. That's a much better line of delivery. Sorry about that. That's a much better line of delivery, and anybody would tell you this than that. That's going to be obviously much steeper. It does. He could still reroute. He really doesn't. Jeff, on the one on the right here, this line here, he doesn't really reroute it or tilt back enough. He stands up in his golf swing, but he doesn't really tilt back enough to shallow out the head. Because right here, when you attack in a straight line from right here, that's definitely going to be a little steep, which obviously is, and that's why he had a little pull there as well. So then when we work down a little bit more, we're going to work Molinari about halfway down. It's close. And you can start to see the differences. So I'll erase these lines. This doesn't have to do with the height that you are. This doesn't have to do, it's just the way you deliver the club. And so you'll see a lot of amateurs that will get the club in this area right here, which we know, and they think, oh, I'm over the top. Well, that's not technically over the top. It's steep, but it's not over the top. The only time when it gets over the top is when this starts to move. That club head will move, release, and move away that way. And that can happen most of the time. That will happen down around the ball, obviously, but it's not over the top yet. It's just steep. It's totally different. That's just the angle of the shaft. So if you remember Sergio, his shaft from his wrist to here, those are the angles you're dealing with. But the thing is, and we'll come back to it, we'll do it now, is the players, they always have communication. It's like if you can picture, it's just like if you can just picture all these things are connected to each other. It's like having 3 cell phones on that are all wired in together and talking to each other, communicating to each other. The sweet spot and in the lower part of the body and the upper part of the body. I mean, those are all, whatever one does, the other one needs to know, and not vice versa. If anything, if you said, okay, if you only had one part of communication, it better be this club head. You better understand the hand, the club head. But if you want to be great, which all these players are, you better have the hands. They have the hands grouped in, and then you better have those signals, that communication between the lower body and the upper body, because the lower body and the upper body are separate. They're not welded together. They can separate from each other. They can be locked up. There's a lot of different ways they can move, but they have to be in communication with that sweet spot the whole time. So if we go down to the baseline here, and so when we get here, you can still see difference. Now again, I'm going to do the best I can with this. So with Jeff's swing here, the club is still behind. That's a bad line, but there we go. But you can see it's still behind. It's just not as much behind as Molinari's. You can see his club head is back behind more. So that means his delivery, if you can picture here, is going to be delivering in on a better angle of attack through the ball to hit a straight ball or draw. And this is going to be, he's probably going to be hitting a 2 to 3 yard draw here. And so what we'll do is, you can see the start line where Molinari is starting that ball. That ball's not going to be right, I can assure you that. That's going to be right in the middle of fairway by the time it's done. And if you watch Jeff hit, you can see that start line is a lot different. That ball is going straight left right there. And I'm sure when he's playing well, he's taking that, cutting it back in to little dog leg right, but a great ball striker will just rip it right down the middle there, and they don't do all that. But just look at the difference in the start line there. Oops. Boom. So now, another thing to look at here is, look at the face rotation I was talking about earlier. So that's more than neutral right there. That's really closing pretty sharply, versus Molinari's face is more square to the exit. So even though he's turned the toe over faster coming over the top of it, because he did slightly come over it right before impact, he kind of casted his right hand into it, and that turned that toe over, and versus because of the angles working from neutral, wrong one. Molinari's working from these neutral angles, it made it much easier for him to have less hand action and better face control through the shot. He still hasn't, even right there, you can see that's several frames past where Ogilvy's is, and you can see that with Ogilvy's it's way more turned over. Even at that point, it's pretty close to the same. But that's because he's way further through. You just look at where they are relative to normal. That's pretty much exact right there. And if you look as he goes through, even right there, several frames through, Ogilvy's maybe a little bit less, but not much. So, whoops, changed it. So, those are and again, we're talking about, you would think, by the way, we're talking Francesco is has a better record. Well, we're not talking about putting and playing golf and all that. What we're talking about is ball striking. I can assure you that if they wouldn't want to get in a money contest hitting flags on a driving range, I can tell you that, or on the golf course, or greens and regulation contests closest to the flag, because Francesco would just eat him up. But it's not just about that, as we know in golf. There's more to it. But I can assure you, this right here, the way that club enters and the way it exits is going to would tear up the other player day in and day out as far as ball striking. That's why they putt. That's why they chip, do other things. So let me go on and pull up another swing here. is Louis here. Same thing as Molinari, really. I mean, pretty much the same thing at the top, just slightly behind that right shoulder. You can see it's in good alignment with that back hip that we talked about. Fairly neutral, but that doesn't really mean anything here. As you see, as he starts down a little bit underplaying, but it's still a very good alignment. I mean, like this part is perfect. His hand plane is a little bit behind, so it'll take him a little longer to square the club up. Play a little bit more of a draw that way. And this would be similar to the way Roy plays as well. But you can see the angle matches up with the seam just like we talked about, so that'd be neutral. Right here would be halfway down. So the hands are deep, but the shaft's not, but it's about to match up. There it goes, all on the money. And then as he works his way to the baseline, and there you go. He's definitely trying to play a little draw here. Okay. Club head's behind. If that club head's sticking out right there, well, and again, it would just be, you can see it's just minimal here. It's very small angles. You want big angles, big misses, small angles, small misses. So this is a little bit of a, definitely a draw swing, but if that club head is sticking out over here, about the same amount, you could hit it. As long as you line up everything in impact, that would give you a good, that would be coming in for a cut. So if you can just picture draw exactly right there. Straight would be, it wouldn't be a straight line for straight. It would actually be about right there would be where the club would be. And these are important to know. I'm not trying to get you guys to do this, obviously, in zone fives and with these drivers. I mean, naturally, as you progress up, these are the things I want you to be looking at when you're doing zones, 2, 3, especially 3 and kind of a 3 and a small 4. Those are the ones with the sandwich doing the deceleration training. When you're looking at your videos, paying attention to how is that club still up in the air? Is that club still up, and is it still behind the hands? And then you have to look also relative to the body with this as well. And I know that, and all that starts when we do the float. As he sinks right here, slows down everything. We talked about last week, which was that circle that we talked about. So as he's circling here, and that's all connected to the face. Every time something moves from here and here, that club face, it better be moving towards the golf ball as well. Now you can't shut the body down and just slam the club bit the ball either. So if you watch everything, I'll just play it just frame by frame. We'll watch the body and the club. You can see everything is just really in sync, and that's why when you see him swing, everything comes in. He's got a very smooth swing. And this is what it should feel like. I mean, if I play this, I'll actually play it a little faster so you can see it. Just watch the club head and the circular movements of the body, how they're always in sync. One's not outrunning the other, and that's so important. So if he stopped his body anywhere in here, if he just stopped his body, stood up or whatever, and that club kept moving forward, that would be a no-no, typically a flip hook. If he was to spin his body like crazy from right here, trying to open it up, which he's not, he's just gradually opening that with relative to his club. He's definitely open through impact. So what people will see here is they will see this movement at impact, and then what happens, they'll get to the top of their swing, and their first swing thought is to do this, snap it. And that ain't how it goes down, I can assure you that. You'll have the club left way behind, the club would stay behind your body way too long, your body would be out in front of the ball, and then you have this massive flip coming through the ball with your right hand. And so what has to happen is when you're doing this, you can't just stop the body and slam a club forward. You have to it just gradually unwinds just like this, no matter what player it is. And then you will see wherever some players are more open than others at impact, it's not even really the amount that they're open at impact. A great player is going to be open because every time the club is moving a frame, the body's moving a frame. They're connected together. And I don't mean with tension, I'm just meaning the communication. So we'll look at it again where you can see the club. Watch the club head and the body. So you don't want to try to get open at impact. That's not the goal. You will be open if you're doing what we're talking about. So when you get up here and we do the slow down effect, like we talked, let everything collect, then we unwind in a circle, it's going to be open. It doesn't have to be open a lot. But you never were trying to superficially snap that left hip like that. That's not what you want to do. In players' minds is what we found out teaching this game as long as I have, and being around a lot of players. When people see those impacts, they think they just need to snap that thing just like that. What they don't realize is they collect that, sink into their hips, and then when they move everything together smoothly in their mind, and he has a smooth swing, everything comes in. It'll be where it needs to be. Don't get it caught up in looking at how much you're open at impact and all that stuff. Your goal should be just to make sure that you have great communication between the sweet spot, the upper body, and the lower body. And we'll take a look at that face on while we're talking about that. So there's Dustin Johnson. And just watch, this is a good frames to watch. Always pay attention to the club head and the circular movements of the body. You can see what I'm talking about. Everything is moving at the same exact pace. Outruns it a hair with his body, but not much. Oops. Everything is coming in together. Boom. And delivers it. There's that sinking part we talk about. Just let it slow down. You'll see his club head slow down and collect. I'm not altering that. See, it comes to almost a full pause. Then he unwinds, circles. Club head is in the same speed as the body. When you watch him swing, so if I play his swing here, we'll just do it this way. And you see that live speed, which people, that's what they do. They just think, well, oops, this snaps his hips. Or if they see this frame right here, and that's all they look at. But when you really look at it visually, oops, let's slow that down again. Everything is in the sync. And so I want to go over one more thing before we kind of start going into a few questions and so forth. This was one of the things I wanted to go over. This is what I was talking about earlier. So let me pull up. Let's see. So if you look at this, was what I was talking about earlier. So Dustin Johnson is about 30 yards longer when he wants to be than Sergio, and he's a very better athlete. But if you look at, there you go. So if you look again, if it was just how much your wrists were cocked, that is not what it's all about. This, you can see this angle is much more up and down, and they're in the same exact, all this. And I believe biomechanically that it's better to have the club moving, and you heard me talk about it, keeping your width, and I don't mean like static width, but the club's moving away from your hands, but your hands are moving forward. So what happens is, and it's hard to talk about, it's easier to demonstrate, but if you see the videos that I make, I'm pushing that club away, but I'm not casting the club. At no point does the club go below my hands, but I am moving that club away, and you'll see a lot of the great ball strikers do that. I believe that Tiger was the one that did it best. Now he does more. He doesn't have as much as Sergio here, wrist cock, but he's definitely more in that where the club's really down cocking way too much, in my opinion, for his style of swing. He was the first one to be able to really keep his width here, and you can see pushing that club. That club, you just watch what it's doing, frame by frame. Club's pushing away, but he hasn't lost pressure, so it's like a hammer throw. It's like a ball and chain. If you can think of this as the chain, and this is moving moving like that. Obviously, it's going this way, but this is moving away. So that allows you to sling the club through the ball. So if you, it's hard to, I can't do this frame by, or do it frame by frame, but you can just see it. But you can see that club's dynamically moving down, but he still has the club head up, which that kind of throws people off. But that's because of the hands moving forward. If he moved the club away from his body and his hands stop moving and his body stalls, he's going to cast it and flip the crap out of it. But what happens, he moves that club down and away, so that club's moving on his distal end speed is much longer. Distal end speed means that the club is further away from the ball from this. And that means power if you have that. So ultimately, he's going to have more power and mass with this. And I can assure you his timing is going to be less. Have to do a less manipulation than this right here. So, but I just thought that was really important to go because I know a lot of players, we have players that don't know anything about golf swing, and I have players that train with us that know everything about nothing. And so what I mean by that is they'll look at this and they go, look, that's where I want to be. I'm like, if you don't do that, if you do that naturally, if that's the way you swing naturally, okay, we can have a conversation. Now, if you look at it and that's the first swing you swing and you're not have any swing thoughts, I'll deal with that. I can teach you to work with that. But if you are somebody that which is 99% of the golfers that just has neutral wrist action, or cast it out away, the last thing you want to do is try to be there. You just want to understand what the cast really is, and the cast is because of the loss of torque in the hands. You already have the club moving away, the distal end part, but you have the hands that are stopping the body's pushing out or away or doing something. But so you would want to just ease back into what this would be, which is it is a form of casting, even though it's not, it's certainly not a loss of power. It's like a ball and chain, like we talk about, where the club's moving away and the hands are moving forward, and that allows you to hit those. Really keep a lot of torque between the ball and the club face. So we'll stop right there for a little bit. I know we've had just several things as far as, and it's a little bit different than last week, but I wanted to show you the variables in playing club, even the backswing planes. Obviously, I mean, all you got to do is turn your TV set on for that and see it every week. They're all over the place. Takeaways, backswing scripts, alignments, all that stuff. But downswings, even that they all are different. It's just that they maintain those principles I talk about. Here's Dustin Johnson, one more. Here's one that you can see, everybody, I love Dustin Johnson's swing, and most of the guys that know me know I love Dustin Johnson's swing. He hits exactly what we're talking about here. He hits exactly what we're talking about there. He maintains the baseline. Club's up and behind. He has to make some awkward moves through the ball just because he has a strong grip, and he does that. But, that's some of his, that's part of yin and yang. He's going to have some of that but that's also some of the stuff that makes him Dustin Johnson. But I was talking about if you watch these players and when they're downswings, even though they attacked on different planes, they're attacking from all over the place. Clubs over here, wherever. But they literally have. I like to draw this line as a reference. This is the planes that they can come in from. So if you want to see, this is your variable planes that your club head can come in from, and your hands. You come over that, your hands get over that, or your club head gets over that, you got zero chance. But most people can keep it in here. But the thing is they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what they're doing. They're slinging it down in the first few frames first because they don't collect it. So they slam the club down this way. The club head starts popping out. It's trying to release it below the hands in a casting motion, and the body stops up and goes vertical. Or the right hip pops out this way, and when the thoracic pool of the left side goes that way, and then the club head would go this way and this way too soon. So they have all these things that are popping up. But if you watch, if you can collect it, you take your time in here and collect it. All your goal is you can keep it. You can keep it in that. I mean, that's the variable plane that you have. All you got to do is keep the head behind the hands here, like we talked about. keep the head, keep it up above the hands, behind the hands slightly, and have communication between the sweet spot and your body as it's circling in and through the ball. Now, as you get that, that's going to develop the frame of the downswing. That's going to get you into, I mean, obviously, I don't know about that, but we're going to get you into where you can definitely strike it and repeat that. Then it's a matter of automatic hands, and automatic hands trumps everything. But if we can, you do have to, if you're in this area here and your club is, which most people is, it's already, um, it's sitting right here and it's already casted below the hands, and it's typically away instead on this side behind the hands, it's over here. And if you watch the body, it's stalling and standing up this way. It's going vertical, so there's no, you can see his spine angle here. And that's why we talk about those 4 essentials in training, you know, keeping the right shoulder going down like we're talking about. That keeps you in posture and the depth, and then you got the head above and through, and then it's just maintaining that pivot through. Looking at the ball with the right eye, just like that. So anyway, that's a lot I know today on the techniques, but I'll go ahead and open it up for some questions. So whoever has a question, fire away.
Matt?
Yo,
This is Eric.
hey, what's up, Eric?
I had a question regarding lag versus torque and speed. I think because most amateurs, what we want
I'm gonna write it down. What was it? Lag versus what?
torque and speed. Is all
Okay,
three of
lag
those,
versus torque or lag versus speed.
well, all three of those variables, which is the most important
Okay.
for distance?
All right. So lag, basically, what are lag, torque, and speed, right?
Right.
All right. So well, when you're dealing with torque, I mean, you have, you know, if I was just, you'll hear me say on the video several times, like, okay, the difference between torque and horsepower, from being relative specific to the club head to the ball relationship. And the reason why I say that is because you have, you know, torque of internal joints of the body, and you have horsepower being the core. There's different things that you know you could classify that across the board in different ways, and so forth. But the main thing is going to be, I'll do a face on here so you can see this. And so what players with a club to ball relationship, what players are going on in a typical player, even a scratch player, is they're just trying to get this to here as quick as possible. So they just go here and snap, and that would be horsepower. So the amount of speed that the club is going through the ball would be considered horsepower or speed, but that would be considered horsepower. Okay, and then torque would be the amount that the ball stayed on the club. So it's basically, it's as the club's going through the ball, how long is that ball stuck to that face? Well, you can see here, there's not enough frames in here to do that. But I can tell you that a great player can feel that ball stuck to that face longer than an amateur can feel that ball stuck to that face, because they don't mass say it. The ball hits and they feel like it's on there, and it's really not when they feel like it's still on there. So, but that's the difference in torque from club to ball relationship. When you're dealing specifically with the club to the ball relationship, you want to feel whether the ball's not. We know it's not going to be on there in a millisecond, but you want to feel that that it is. And that's the difference between torque and like speed. And if you're dealing with lag's a form of torque, but now we're talking about a whole different ball game. And because what we're doing here is when we're talking the club to ball relationship, that's as the club has been released from lag and all this. So yeah, I mean, lag would certainly have an effect on that. So lag would be, I don't even, so what happens is, the reason why every golfer that's ever had a lesson working on lag literally will tell you that they hit it terrible after they got done working on lag. Because typically the way they work on lag is, that means that all lag is the club head staying up above the hands and behind the hands. That's it. That's lag. That's all. That's the definition of it. But what they try to do is they try to pull on that club, so they'll get it to the top of the swing, and they'll try to pull with their arms down this way, and and uh, and pull it as long as they possibly can, and they don't have any feel of their body or even the face really. They just have the feeling. They do have the feeling of the torque in the handle like this, but then by the time they hit the impact, you can't. Dustin Johnson won't do it justice, but their club head would be literally right here, and their hands would be right there. So it'd be this big flip from the club head to ball. And so then what would happen there goes back to torque again, is that ball would not be stuck to the face long enough. It would have, like, if you will, a masse to it. So that's why these players have these high spin rates when they go and do driver fittings. They'll go in and they go, man, I've got this, whatever it is, 4,200, spin rate or whatever it is. That's just all that is relative to the way the ball is stuck to the face. And the ball can go a lot. When I say that, it can go a lot of different ways. It can run up the face. It can go across the face. It's just like if you're shooting pool and you're trying to break the balls in pool, and you go to break the balls and you hit it. You hit the cue ball and you hit it right on the side. And that's the best way, because that's horsepower going into the ball, but you didn't have any torque. Torque is really slow and heavy. It's a very slow and heavy feel, and when you hit it with that, it doesn't mean you hit it slow. It just means that when you hit whatever object you're hitting, it is hit very heavy and the feeling would be very slow and heavy, and that's what gives it the rebound to explode forward. And so speed is speed can go any direction. You can whip the ball. You can swing 150 miles an hour, and if you miss it, the ball's not going anywhere. So torque is the relationship from of the club head to ball, and however long you can keep it on the face, especially feeling like it. And that doesn't mean going and chasing the club head down the line. And I have a video that talks specifically about all that as well. But did that help you understand the lagging is from this view right here? So lag, you're dealing with a form of torque. The release, you're dealing with a form of speed, but it's probably getting out there right now. Stuff we probably don't need to get into. But basically, if you can see here, the club is always staying. You can't see it from the down line, but we know it's behind the hands. But you can see that the club head is up. So as you are unwinding here, at no point here will that club head ever be below the hands. You can see even as that club's it's moving downward here, but it's still above the hands right here, right? And then as you see here, that he can't hold it any longer. He doesn't need to. If he tried to force the butt of the club any more forward than that, then the angle would get too steep. The ball would run up the face, and it would affect his relationship to that torque we were talking about, the club to ball relationship. So that's it. And so when you'll see in every player's release point where they truly release the club is different. Some will release it. The butt of the club might be in here. For his style of swing, he knows it's right there, and he just knows. I guarantee he wasn't taught that. He just knows. That club head is still above the hands, and now the club head is below, and now he has no more lag. Now, he still has torque in his hand, so I don't want you to think that and that's really important to know, because as soon as he goes from here, he doesn't just flick that club head into the ball. What he does is everything is still synced up together. He still has all this torque in his hands. As soon as that club is here and he's going into again, it's not like in his head he's going, okay, it's release time. It's just naturally doing that from all the things, that connection he had at the top of his swing between his body and his sweet spot. But that club, he's not just flicking his wrist here. Everything's staying together, as you can see, and that's why he lines that up, literally perfect on the grip alignment point. So different. I know those are different. We probably I don't know. Wait, did that answer your questions?
Yeah, it did. Those three components of lag, torque, and speed.
Yeah, down the line it would look like this. So, whoops. So lag would be, if you look at it down the line, it's you can see here the club head is up and behind the hands.
Right.
And it's up and behind the hands, up and behind the hands. So that's why you don't ever really hear me talk about lag. I don't think in any of my videos I say the word lag. I might. But the reason why is because I've had, I know we used to teach, say that word all the time, lag, and teach it, but the results they're never any good with any instructor. Any instructor behind closed doors will tell you that, yeah, you work on a lag session and usually you're not going to hit it good. Now, that's why I always talk about keeping the club head up and behind the best that you can and chip away at it, because it has to be part of that communication of the body. Everything has to be wired together, if that makes sense.
Right.
So if you
It
see
does.
here,
It does.
it's not just about when what would happen is if somebody was, let's just say they're in this area in their backswing, and they start down and they're working on lag, they'll just shut, if you will, they just shut this part of their body down. It wouldn't move at all, and what would happen? They would just slam their arms forward. It wouldn't look like that. They would just slam their arms forward, lag, and then they would be disconnected, and there would be this um, big flip through the ball, and it's just not good. And even if you didn't flip it, you might have what we call um, a linear compression. And linear compression is where the butt of the club drives too far out off plane, which is not most people's problem. So when they get through here, whoops, back that up. So when he would get through here, he would run the club head instead of it exiting this way. That whole unit, even though he hit it in a straight line, would be going that way, and that would be a linear compression, and that's not good. Now you'll hit it solid. You can hit it really solid because your alignments are really good, but you'll hit it off the planet to the right, and that's what Tiger runs into when he's playing poorly. When he's playing really good, it'll exit just like this back to the left. Like
I notice with my driver, I'm hitting it on top of the sweet spot. Why is that?
steep. So what that would be is this club head would be casting away. So as you're coming in this area right here, in this baseline, this club would be one, it would be steeper, and it would be also moving this way. It would be moving out and away, and that's caused from, if you could refer to our thoracic, see what was it, it's how to fix your over the top video. It's a public video, actually. It's a legit, really good video, and that's from a thoracic, that's from these muscles on the left side of the thoracic spine. They're pulling this way, and then your right lumbar is shooting out that way. So it's like this shearing, and that casts the club out and makes it go forwards. And so if you look at that face on, there's another way to do it, and that's if you watch the best players in the world, they truly keep the head behind the ball as they go through. So if you watch, you'll see, say he's behind the ball here, your head would be up in front of that on top of it. So your head would be more up here, if you will. So that would cause you to pop up. And that, when you get out, if the head's in front of the ball and you outrun the shaft, and I've seen your swing, so I know your swing. You kind of you outrun the club, so you don't collect all the energy at the top of the swing. So what happens? The club just you have to, you see it in other videos, it just flops. So it just kind of goes up as it's going into the float zone. It needs to slow down. What happens is your body will start running and opening forward. So it's going, if you will, here, if you watch him, how you see he just sits straight down into his hips right here. You'll see both. He's in his transition right now. He's already turning back the other way, he's already ready to strike the ball from here, and he has been for the last few frames. So if you see here, you can see he's already sitting down, sitting, and just waiting to unwind on the ball. Whereas what you would be doing right here your legs would already be running that way too fast, and your head is moving this way. And then what happens is halfway down, you won't see it with him obviously because he doesn't do it, because he's unwinding around a stable center, right? So his center has been the same since he started. So that circle is much more efficient. When your head moves this way in front of that, you break the law of the circle, right? So you can't rotate around that as well. And so what happens is your head would be, if you will, over here on this side of the line, like this. And you just watch your video and you'll see. And then your club would be way over here, be casted over in this area. So there's this big space. We call it that dead space. So there's this big space right in here that is too much slack in the swing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
So what you have to do You want to start it. It won't even be your drive. It's not your driver. This is happening. The same thing. It's happening in your wedge, and I guarantee you, your divots are probably too deep on your wedge right now, and the ball's rolling up your face, and either you don't feel it or don't know it, or you feel it and you just haven't fixed it yet. But it's happening in 20. I'm telling you, I see this every day at the range. Guy came out today, same thing, pull flipping his driver. I said, all right, let's start. He's a good player, very good player, 3 handicap. He's pull flipping his driver, missing the target 50 yards, comes out, wants a lesson, and I break him down to 20-yard shot, and he saw it there, and he goes, wow, I'm pulling that, aren't I? And I said, yeah. I said, just think 5 yards on, if you pull a wedge 5 yards and it's turning over and it's too low, then how do you think that's going to scale up the chain when you go to a 7-iron and a driver? And he was like, oh yeah, he goes, I totally get that. So he started to understand, like, okay, he had to sync up his body. It was a different, I can't even remember exactly what we worked on. Oh, I know it was. We worked on keeping the clip more stable. I'll walk you through it through this area. It's actually more of a down the line view. Let me show you so it'll make more sense. And everybody's different. I'm not saying you guys need to work on this, but like if you watch, so if you watch Molinari here, like when he comes through the ball, like as soon as he makes contact, and this is very, when you get, it's important whether you're 150 shooter or you're Tiger Woods. When you're coming through the ball, and you can see that's a few frames through the ball. If you look at the face rotation, most amateurs have that toe. That's the toe of the club over here in the heel. That toe would be rotating like crazy that way. And their hands would be, you see where his hand position is here, this angle here, their hand position would be more up like that. So that right hand's flipping up, the elbow's flipping out, and the toe's flipping over. And they still slice the ball because of the masse, the way that they're masseing the ball coming across. This is all after. But a great ball striker, and we're going to break this down into a chip shot here in a minute because I have this guy chipping, and you'll see. It's just that stabilization of the face. You want to feel like you're hitting a little, when you're coming through the ball, you should feel like you're putting it. You don't want, if you're hitting a little putt, 3 feet in front of you, you wouldn't want that toe rotating all the way over. You wouldn't want a high handle or you wouldn't want the clip face where it had zero rotation. So, and I think this could be a lesson. This doesn't have to do with anything with grip. This doesn't have to do with anything. This is just somebody that really knows how to control that face through the ball, coming into the ball and through the ball.
Now you should feel that even with your driver at higher speeds, because when I slow down, I
If
can
you
feel
get
it.
to a higher
Even
level,
56.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying I can feel that as I'm going through zone 1, zone 3, even zone 4, and I'm slowing down
Mm-hmm.
the decal, deceleration. I'm feeling that as I come down to that sweet spot. And so let's say in a couple of months, you're saying I should be able to feel that even with my driver coming down that sweet spot, I should be able to feel that. Hit that
Yeah,
ball.
when you get rounds in, so a higher level player, like if this player, like, and I can assure you, this is a very good swing, but I guarantee you, there's times where that toe's flipped over, and he knows, like this player knows. The higher level players, like we talked about last week, they have a higher level of feel and awareness, and there's no
Right.
question that's why they're the highest level. But in amateur, that's why we do some of the Tai Chi, some of the fundamentals, but mostly even in just the golf swing, that decel, um, is to help you to feel where that club head is. Is it behind? Is it up? Is the body in sync with that? And if it is, you're good to go. If it's not, you have to look at it, and well, you have to sometimes look at it externally, like we're doing here, looking at it from the video standpoint and your own videos, and start to dial that in as feels. And then, but what's going to be more important is not the video. When you get good at it, it's when you can truly feel it. Like you can make a swing blindfold, and you can go, oh, okay, I felt that flip, or I felt. I'll show you, like we were talking about earlier. I'll show you an example, and this is a U.S. Open champion I'm talking about. So it shows you there's variables to do it, and if you always refer back to the grip alignment, or not the grip alignment point, excuse me, the timing contact point. The timing contact point trumps everything. The grip alignment point's what you always hear me talking about and all that, but the timing contact point is the reason why this player right here can win a U.S. Open, because he hits timing, boom, you look at club face, money. Now, if you look at how it's going through, that's a lot of face rotation, and he knows it. and he's limited. You have that much face rotation, you're not going to be the level of ball striker. It doesn't mean you won't be good, obviously, but you're not going to beat your play to your max potential. Max potential would be this. If you look at Jordan Spieth, and I don't have him on here, but I'll see if I can put him on here. There's a couple ways we can do that where I can show you a swing. You would see this exactly, just a better athlete doing it. Roy McIlroy, he's about half as much of that. He's in between both of these players, but a lot different athlete than both of these guys as well. And Rory doesn't come in steep. You know, Ogilvy here is coming in steeper than what he would probably like, and also much steeper than what you're going to see the highest level of ball strikers. But I'm telling you, the goal is if you're trying your best to do like we're talking about here, and you can't do it, and you end up here, and your club head is staying up above your hands and behind your hands, you're going to be playing some really good golf. All you got to do is ask Jim Franks. I mean, he delivers it from right here, and he's the guy we talked about that, that shot the 72-69 at 60 years old, won his club championship. He's a guy, former 90 shooter. So, it's one of those things that, yeah, you get it as long as you're fighting to keep that club head up in the sky. You can't, and you got to fight to keep that club head up, and you from not the down line view, but from the face on view, you have to have those communicators that I'm talking about, and that's from. Let me see if I can get this face on. Bear with me here. So that's when you get to the top of the swing that you have communication. As soon as he's here, if you watch, we'll do some of this tonight where you see before we end, but where you see the visuals of where he slows down, you'll see it. Everything slows down, collects it, and then his body just unwinds from here. So he's got communication of the sweet spot here in his upper body and his lower body. So when one's moving, everything's synced up. That's the goal. And those players right here are trying to spin really hard with their body because they think, I got to hit it with my hips. I got to hit it really fast with my body. So they get over here and they lean their hips forward, and then let's just say that they just spin them that way, and that's typically what most players are doing. But you'll typically see, some leaning forward and some slack. And that's why on the top of the swing, I always talk about in the float. The float is all just really about slowing down, allowing that to slow down and collect all the energy. All right. And then what you're trying to do is keep pressure in both both feet rooted when that club's coming to a stop. So when that club's going back, and you'll see him doing that, he's just putting pressure down in both feet. And then the circle starts, this small circle. It's not a big circle, it's a very small, subtle circle. But as he's circling with the body, it's not like he's going, okay, I just circle with the body, forget the club head. He has to circle with the body and always know where that sweet spot is. There you go. All right. Anything else on that?
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Just that driver, you can do the D-cell drills with that. I mean, it's really, I always, hold on just a second, got a question. See if Grant said something. I'll see if I can find that here in just a second. I think a couple guys put in some questions here. So just remember with the driver, if you're popping it up, your head typically is going this way in transition, and you don't collect the club enough in top. This is just in general, but it's pretty good reference. Is you're going this way and your club is going casting this way, and it creates too much slack in between. And so what happens is when the club's getting ready to come in, it just goes straight down into the ground because there's no support for the club. There's no torque in the hands, and that's not what I'm talking about. The club head to hands. There's just no torque in the hands. So if you watch how he unwinds here, you can see how when I say torque, that doesn't mean I'm talking about like grip pressure and all that, but he has these soft hands here, but he has torque in the handle of the club. He's got that fully collected. That thing is totally energized. And as he's continuing to pivot, because everything's in sync the whole time, that torque all of a sudden comes into the club to ball relationship where you can feel it, boom, hit into the ball, and the ball rebounds against the face, and that's what shoots it out forward. So anyway, let's
Awesome.
see here. See if I can find these chats here. Hold on just a second here. All right. See, hey Lance, are you on there, bud? You may be on the phone line. Move on. Okay, get better flight. Let's see. Hitting slow. Okay. Um, I'm just reading these off right now, so I'm just kind of. What do the hands do, if anything, in the downswing from waist high to waist high? That's a really good question. Yeah. Okay. So that's Grant. Grant asks, what do the hands do from waist high and from here to basically? I know he's talking about right there, and I want to answer that here in just a second. But there's another question. So, is there a Okay, so I'm going to answer this. This is going to be a down. We'll start with down the line. All right. So as we're in delivery, what Grant's asking is it what happens with the hands through from here, essentially through here, obviously, and then through the to the other side. What's going on? And that's really our whole program. So when the club's here, we want the club up above the hands. We know that, and we want it behind the hands slightly. We don't want it way behind the hands. But it's hard to demonstrate this without showing you visually. But what's happening is he's just maintaining his turn right here. He's got all that collection, so he's not really like if you can picture like if he just stopped his body and shot the club towards the ball right here, what would happen is this grip would really rotate. Like his right hand, you could see the V is pointing this way. If he was to stop his body right here and lose the torque in his hands, that V would look like that. He would roll that. Let's see, would it be? Yeah, it would be roll. Actually, it would be going. It would be going this way. So he would be snapping that and roll. If you can picture that that V that he's got right there would be rolling, and that would be a no-go. That'd mean you hit it 5 miles left. When a great player, the first thing is this useless. This is useless to talk about because you can look at pictures. I've seen pictures before that show guys that look similar to this, but they've lost the club. And again, it's energy based, so he knows he's got the club full. He's got it fully collected. He's torqued with his hands right here. If he doesn't have that feeling, you can't pull something you don't have. And torque is a pulling action. So if this doesn't have torque, even though it may look like the same position, if he doesn't have torque in here, he can't do anything but flip that club. And that torque could be lost from here, here, but it's not. He has it. So all he knows he's got to do here is keep that torque up against the ball as his body's pivoting. The problem is most players are casting. I think I've got a video. If you guys will bear with me here, there's a video of a guy that actually has the club looking similar to this, and but his body is not here. So therefore, he's not got the handle energized at all, and you'll see the difference. And I think this will make more sense. So let me see. It'll take me just a minute to find it here. Yeah, this is it. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So he's doing the D-cell drill, obviously, right? He's a good player. is going to be great once he learns how to use that circle we talk about. So he's doing, and this is how, if you want to see how to do the decel, this is how you do it. Now he hit a little pull there, right? And you can see it's not a bad swing. He's got the club, the club head's behind his hands, but look at the body difference. So you have to bear with me, but his body has no circle, so that the club's not collected, even though it's up above the hands, it's behind the hands. And even here, he didn't really flip it, but the thing is, the club was never energized. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull that back into position and show you. So now, let me show you what it looks like when you got a high-level athlete with the same. He's very close. He's only missing one component. And as soon as you see this photo, you'll see why. I can't split screen these, but we can go back and forth. Look at his body here. And it's not, and again, this isn't about this position here. This is because if you look at the top of the swing, he never had communication. When he went here, his body just stopped. He doesn't move. His arms are falling. And if you watch Dustin get in the same position here, you can see everything, it sinks straight down, and then it starts to open up, and he maintains the same alignments with the hands here. So the difference is, in this one, in particular, is just the body. So you can see even right here, I'll try to stop it. There you go. You can even see right here, it looks like he actually looks like he's in his backswing. If somebody was showing me this as a still photo, I'd say, what is that, his takeaway? And it's not. That's his downswing. It won't look like that you won't see it looking like that with a high-level pro right before impact. You see right there, you can see it doesn't look like their takeaway. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So yeah, that should, because that's the difference. And the only difference is for him. So what he'll do here, all this is awesome. I mean, his is what everybody. I want everybody to get this relationship with the club. I mean, he doesn't flip it really. He just doesn't have any support. So you can see here the club comes in, strikes it, but he doesn't have any support from the body here. But his hips are definitely too close, square, which would be closed at impact and all that. But if you watch, he's really trying to maintain these alignments. That's really good. He's got the 4 essentials that I talk about on the video. So he's literally doing everything that he's supposed to do. Yet he's not going to play his best golf. He's not playing bad, but he's not going to play his best golf until he starts to. And he doesn't need to look like that. But I mean, let me put. Molinari, I like using him because this isn't some world-class athlete that, this guy's a little guy that just uses efficiency to hit the ball with. So if you look at him, if you look at right before the ball, you can see there's that movement, but it's constant. Now he's not spinning from the top. If you watch, it's just gradual. That club head's moving, the body's moving. They're never stopped, but they're not spinning. It's just a small little circle. So then if you go back, see, through the ball, he looks good there, but that he's pivoted, he's connected way too late. There he is before the ball. Let's pull Molinari right before the ball. So that ought to give you a good indicator. But sometimes what happened is a player would see that's how they're swinging and that's how they move and all that in their real swing. So what they would do is they'd grab their 7-iron out, full blast, Mach speed, start trying to spin their hips or impact and trying to fix that. That's not how you do it. That just makes it worse. What you want to do is when you get here, it's the slowdown effect that we talked about. Let that club slow down. Let everything collect. Don't do any spinning. Let everything sink straight down, and then just take your time in that circle. Let everything unwind a circle. Keep the head up and behind, and those things are in communication. And then your body will be in nice time through the ball. And you can see, if you look at here, he's doing like we were talking about in our four essentials video. We talked about that's very, very, very similar. So he's very close to playing some serious golf, and he knows it. It just he has to, and where with that, if you have the club looking like that, like he was doing, and every player's different. Some people their bodies are going nuts, and the club's falling all over the place. But if you do have the club just like that, it's just a matter of connecting the body to the sweet spot. Under those two, three things, getting in good communication with each other. And when I say communication, that's your brain knowing where all three are at all times. And then eventually, and that's in training, and eventually you just turn back and you turn through. That's essentially all this guy's doing right here. He's not thinking of all that, but I guarantee he has at one time. So, let's see if there's any other questions here. Let's see. See if I can read that. So the hands. This was another question from Grant. I heard some instructors suggest the hand should release as early as possible. Well, if you understand release, there's no way you want to release the club as early as possible, because that would be what the. So what that means is you would be in the top of the swing here and you would just cast the club down, and that's what a true release. Because what a release is, you'll have to see this from the base on view. And if you're measuring this from classical biomechanics, which is my background, I'll show you what that looks like. So a release, only time the club releases is, what a true release is when the club is below the hands. Okay, everything else is gradual momentum, but it's it's still, like we were talking about earlier. If you're talking about lag, this club head is still up and behind, and it will stay that way as the body's unwinding. So what they're talking about is they want this. Again, if you're talking about what release truly is, release is the only time in the golf swing where the club head is below the hands. That's what a release is. That's what it's defined as. So all this is the release. So that's where, in their mind, they're probably wanting the players that's, if they're outrunning it with the body, then they're saying, okay, cast the club out. That's still playing that same cat and mouse game. And I certainly have heard that where guys are talking about, release as soon as possible. You tell 100 guys out on the driving range with a driver, 7-iron, or even a little sand wedge, and they're going to do it differently. They're going to do it differently because release is different to every player. It just really is. So I don't really get into what I believe in. Here's what I believe in. I believe in the sweet spot. I believe in the lower part of the body there, and I believe in the upper part of the body. And I believe that they all have to be in communication. If this spins and this holds back too long, you're going to get too much separation and slack, get a back injury. You'll definitely lose timing for the normal player. If the top part spins and the lower part doesn't do anything, that club's going to come over the top and typically cast out and away, lose energy for sure. Or if the club casts away and the body doesn't do anything, you'll typically get a snap hook. I believe that what I teach and believe is that they are all three need to be, when you start to sink down and collect all that energy, which is not turning back towards the target, sinking straight down. So when you're thinking to turn back to the target, to hit back into the target, that all I can tell you is you need to be thinking. That's some terrible lines there. You need to be thinking straight down, not to the target. The first thing that needs to happen is straight down. So instead of twisting this way, straight down with the feet, and then just gently unwind and unwind into a circle and keep that club head up and behind. But always know where they are. And that's why we have to do it. That's why we do the deceleration, so you can build those fundamentals. You can build that circle we talk about, but you always know that you always have really good discipline of the club, the sole of the club to the hands. So you'll see here. And what you typically see in instruction, what you would see is everybody, they're talking about, and we have too. We draw lines and all that, but it's not about the lines for me. I mean, all I know is the club head needs to be above the hands, behind. And if it's on this angle first, yeah, that's definitely going to be better. But all I know is it's got to stay there. But the body has to be unwinding too. You can't stall the body and just be only club, and you can't just be you know, all body either. So, you just have to know what they're designed to do. You have to know what you're doing, and first, and then you have to, and what the deceleration does is it allows you to feel like what you're doing. You have to look too. If you don't have the feel, then you need to use video, and then you got to convert that image that you're seeing into feel of right and wrong. Like when you do it wrong, you know it. If you're doing it right, you know it. And so then you do more right than wrong. And that's going to be the internal feel, which is going to be a lot more powerful than, looking at video and all this. These players, they know. I mean, they have coaches that'll say, okay, hey, you're a little bit off this way, you're a little bit off this way. But again, it's very minimal, when these players, like a good example of Dustin Johnson, he's not ever touching his backswing. It'd be crazy. None of these players that will ever touch their backswings really. What they're going to be doing is working on if they're losing space here, they're getting a little bit too under. Those are the things from this part of their golf swing. If you're watching Butch Harmon, those guys, myself, we're working with a pro. I'm looking at what's going on, what's happening around here and through here. That's what they're looking for. And if the body's popping up or stalling or the right hand's flipping, those are the things you're looking for a pro. Their frame of the swing, this thing back here, you're not going to touch this. I mean, that's just how he swings. And you're not going to touch that part, which is the finish. You're not going to touch the takeaway. You might touch alignment, you might correct alignment. And I'm not saying you might even adjust takeaway a little bit, depending on the player. But most of it's going to be anything you do, it better be affecting this part of the golf swing. If it does not affect this, then it's not a good lesson. So, and the thing is amateurs spend all their time trying to build the frame of their swing. They're trying to make all this, and this is probably the worst example in the world. Look at the frame. So I'll pull up Molinari. But so if you look, they're spending all their time trying to make all this perfect right here, the takeaway, the grip, all the basic fundamentals perfect. And they spend so much time working on everything. When they hit a bad shot, they don't know what it was that was going on. The great thing about, and his backswing's natural too. This is just how he swings the club now. But if he hits a bad shot, he knows that it's coming from, in this area. He knows that, okay, I snapped the hands over too early, or pulled up with my posture, got going this way, or whatever it may be. That's how you fix those guys. But the amateurs are always spending all their time working on the frame of their swing, this side and then all the way back here, and they're not spending near enough time building what hits the ball. And when you get to here and you start that into that transition zone, that's where all the money's at. You either get through the ball without flipping, or you don't. So that's why we went through with that wedge shot, is because if you take any of these players, and I'm going to actually do that real quick again before we take some more questions, is I'll show you how this relates. This ought to help you understand. So this same player, this is Molinari. So if you watch, here's what we talk about all the time. So here's the old zone. I'll just let it play. And that ball is actually the type of shot. That would be what we call a progressive. That would work up the scale all the way full ball strike. That ball doesn't actually have a lot of backspin. That's a neutral shot right there. So this is exactly what we talk about. The club head's behind the hands, stays behind the hands, right on top. Now that's a straight shot. See, that's still behind the hands, but it's just very slight. Comes in, and look at the face Look at how clean the face rotation is here. And that matches up exactly with his driver. The only thing with his driver is, oops, that's a bad line. The driver was a little more rotated, not because it's a driver. It was a little more rotated because he was hitting a little more of a draw. But you see how similar that is to that. And so you're here. There's the float. Sole of the club. You can see that connection and the face control. So if you see these guys when they do this, they do this blindfolded. Where when I see somebody sending in videos on the deceleration drill, I mean, I don't never see anybody's doing it right the first time, and I don't mean that disrespect. It's just they don't. It's a very hard drill. It's a very hard drill, and most people think they've got it way sooner than they actually do. There's Arnie Els demonstrating of zone 2. Zone 2, zone 3, it could be a small zone 3, whatever you want to call it. But you'll see it. You can see that club slow down and transition. Everything that we talk about. Gets behind the hands on top, boom. Here's one that's got a little more face rotation. But when I show you, if I showed you his golf swing, he has a little more face rotation. That's still pretty neutral to the actual plane, the exit though. So he's got control. But these little shots, those are the cool thing about these shots. Those aren't because there's when you're around the short game, I mean, guys could be hitting flop shots. Now this will scale up, right? So we call that. So if you just hit that shot, and then he had a, let's just say a swing was a little longer, it went back here, back here, back here with the same impact. The ball would just go further, 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 and it would just, that would be a golf swing. That's what we call the ball striking scale versus the chipping scale. So let me show you like one that would not. See if I can find one here. Here's a flop. Well, yeah, and so this is one. So here's a shot. This is not going to scale up in your ball striking. Club head outside the hands, as you can see. Look at that how open the face is right here. Going to cut the legs off of it, and that's a shot. But if you try to do that, which is what most people are doing with a driver at 100 miles an hour, that's the kind of masse the angles they're coming in on, and that's the reason why they have to swing 5 times harder than they need to from a force standpoint, and they can't hit it straight. So they can't hit it straight if they swing easy either, because they're masse in the ball. So that right, if you see somebody out there doing that, that means nothing as far as going up the scale in ball striking. Now this one, you see the difference here is you can't see it from down the line, but you can see here he's trying to put penetration on the shot. This is going to be more of that would scale up exactly like what we're talking about. So totally different shots. This is literally a zone 3. But you see any pro, and he's hitting a little hook and run right there. So that's exactly the way. I haven't even seen this video. Very cool. He's hitting hook and run without hand action. So he's using that with pivot. Very nice there. Yeah. So if you look at that, that's exactly the way zone 3, a small zone 3. It could be classified zone 2, zone 3, either way. But if you look, the club has a little float in it, a little pivot with the body. You see the grip alignment point. You'll see everything that we're talking about. A little float, circle and drag. There's your timing contact point, grip alignment point, and then the exit that we talk about. So, and these are all pros. So they have these shots mastered, right? I mean, they can do that. This player could do that 10,000 times in a row. And you can't find hardly any players that are amateur golfers that can do that 5 times in a row. And so how can you, if you can't do that, that's the one that's the way your hand should look. This discipline of, Grant was asking how the club should, this is what it's supposed to look like. Exactly what it's supposed to look like. Whether you're hitting a driver, whether you're hitting a 7-iron or whatever. That's what every pro on the tour wants to feel, that right there. And so you master that little zone, then the swing would just get longer. And say if the club goes back all the way here, it's coming down the exact same way. You want it to come back exactly the same way. It stays up and behind, and then you're pivoting. The point is these guys had this shot mastered before they had their big swing mastered. They had that shot in their bag mastered before they started trying to. Whereas when amateurs go out, they don't. They want to go try to master the full swing and then come back, and they never do. So they end up either quitting or just playing like crap all the time. So you can make any swing change that you want to make. Swing changes are easy. Swing changes are almost impossible though if you're trying to do it full speed. If you're trying to do it the way we teach it, it's simple because you're doing it such small zones and such slow speeds on the downswing, not the backswing. But it teaches you to build feel and awareness, so you can start to build change. And if you can't feel anything, if you can't feel whether you're doing it right or wrong, then you're going too fast. And it may be, and it's not a fair fight with. If you go to, I know we have one of our martial arts instructor on here, Lance on here, but he knows. If you get it's not a fair fight. You bring somebody that has that just has that knack for it, just natural. They're going to learn so much faster than somebody that comes in there has no idea, never heard of it, never doesn't have any natural feel, understanding, doesn't get anything. Not saying they can't get it because they can. It happens all the time, but the learning process is not going to be the same. I mean, I can show this same video to 100 people, and some people are going to have it tomorrow, and some people are going to have it next month, maybe 2, 3 months. Who knows? And you can't say
Now,
exactly. All I know is everybody does not learn the same way as far as speeds. Even though the
now, Matt,
information maybe is very nice, doesn't mean they're going to learn the same way.
Matt, I did something today. I want to run by you.
Yeah,
I was using the.
I can barely hear you though.
Oh, you can barely hear me.
Yeah, if you can just talk louder, that'd be good. It's hard on my end for some reason. I can barely hear you.
Okay. What about better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. I was saying that today I was using I think it was my 8 and my 7 iron to go 80 yards, and I was working on a decal in zone 2, zone 3. Is that a good thing?
With an 8 iron, you said?
Yeah, and I was only going like I was trying to get my 8 iron, 7 iron, and 6 iron, 80 yards, and I got up to a 5 iron. I couldn't do it, so I went back down to a seven.
I,
You
I,
know, and
I like it better with a 60 degree or 56, the highest you have in your bag. And I know the guys that have been in the program would say the same exact thing. And the reason why is
okay,
you're building a short game shot. I mean, it's a shot you're learning now. If you watch the other videos I have, I'm sure you have the ones about the chipping ball striking versus progressive ball striking or whatever it's called. But the basic difference is, um, they're not necessarily the same. When you get around short game, there might be times where you're trying to nip the ball, masse the ball, and you may not even it may be just ingrained. You don't even know you're doing it. But the way we're teaching it is, if you hit this ball solid from 20 yards, it's going to have a little forward run on it. It's not going to have a lot of spin, and it's going to have enough spin. It's a legit shot for short game, but it's not going to be one where you're short-sided and you're going to be trying to nip the wheels off of it or whatever. It's not. That's not what you're trying to do. When you're doing this small swings like we're doing here, you're just trying to get, like we talked about before, you're trying to get max compression, the initial start line, your trajectory right, and ball control right. And every time you hit one, your computer, your brain should be ringing off like, did you grade it 1 to 10? Like, how was my compression? Was it 1, 2, 3? How was my start line? Boom, boom, boom. And I'm telling you, even on a 10 or 15 yard shot, if you not everybody's standards are as high as mine, but they should be. You want to grade those shots because a lot of times people can hit 10 yard shots when they're doing the ball striking scale, and they don't realize that they're missing the compression. And if you don't, just listen to the sound of your ball and then listen to the sound of how either my player sound or how I'm hitting the shots in the videos, and the audio will tell you whether you got it or not. Then initial start line. If you're pulling a ball 3 yards on a 10 yard shot, that's going to be massive problems by the time you get out to the full speed. It shouldn't be. It
right,
should barely be off maybe a foot. Um,
right,
and so trajectory, you need to look at the launch. The launch should be changing should be start out on a 10 yard shot should be very low, and then it should just gradually start rising at 20 yards. And those are the things you got to really judge and grade, and sometimes are missed by the players. Like, because you can learn. I'm telling you, you can build your golf swing from 20 yards, and people think you're crazy, but you're not. Um,
hmm
your hands, that's where it's all at. Your shaft and your hands on a 20 yard shot, it's all right there. If you're coming over the top of it on a 20 yard shot, casting it, you're going to pay for it. You're going to hit a lot of pulls. You're going to masse the ball. Um, but there are guys that can hit the 20 yard shot. I should say. I shouldn't say it just like that because you can swipe it. I showed the guy today. I was like, I can swipe this 20 times in a row because I know I've been playing my whole life, so I mean I can swipe the ball, cut it, and hit it the same exact distance, 20 yards, but it won't scale up.
Mm-hmm.
You always got to ask yourself, would that scale out to 200 yards, 250 with a driver, 300 with a whatever it is? Was that, am I putting enough compression? Am I swiping that ball, or am I? Because even if you got the trajectory looking right, the everything looks great, but sometimes you got to go. Is that rebound? Is the compression high enough? Is that really what it would? Will that scale up if I go to a 9 iron right now, or 7 and 5? You got to be asking yourself those questions. Sometimes you don't know. You just have to develop it, and that's part of the program too. Listening to the sound and the audio. But I would not do that with an 8. I would definitely do it with a 60 degree or 56. That's going to be you're going to be able to feel the club head better. Plus, it's going to give you better reinforcement. The last thing you ever need in this game is to lose confidence when you're trying to work on your game. And if you're trying to hit an 8 iron doing zone 2s, 3s, 4s, and all that, you're going to hit more bad shots than you will good. With a 60,
Gotcha.
it's more designed for that. It's designed for those short swings, and the bounce is designed more for it as well. So it's going to give you better feedback.
Gotcha. Okay.
Anybody else got any questions? So this is Nancy Lopez. Nancy Lopez, she's obviously she was one of the greatest female golfers of all time. But I just want to show you just some of the things like how players can recover, because this is really, in my opinion, really cool swing. I mean, look, here's your takeaway. So if the takeaway has to be on plane to play good golf, she's out of the question. Club's a mile and a half across the line, pointing 3 fairways over. What that means is, the basic and target line parallel would be that in the general. And her club face is pointing. I don't even know if she's done that. It's pointing. So if you can imagine that club head is pointing. I don't even know if she's done. Yeah, she's. Oh, there it goes. So it's pointing. From her target. So if you got to remember when you're drawing this out, you're drawing it. That's how it's sideways relative to the target. But in her mind, she doesn't even, I'm sure she doesn't even know where, so she might actually be able to see the club in her head, but in her mind, this isn't what she's thinking, like how far she's off of the ball. All she's thinking about is like, okay, all I got to do is circle and unwind. If you look through the first stage, boom. Now we talk about that's typically that you'd see the seam of the shirt, you go up a little bit, right there. She's just barely steep. Give her one frame right on it. Through the middle. Here's the middle of the spine. Hands midway. That's literally perfect. And then here's your baseline. There you go. And there's your delivery. And you can see little push. That's a push draw. Push means that you have your start line. Whatever. One of the prettiest shots in golf for sure. There's your start line. There's the face. So she did hit a rotational flip hook. That flip hook would be where the toe's way over, and the ball is probably started left of the target and keeps hooking. But you can see that's not a lot of face rotation for that push draw. It starts to turn over a little bit more, but that's already after the ball's out of there. So I just wanted to show you that just so you can see how players. Everybody has to recover. So a lot of players that I work with, they will get up here and they will go, "Oh, I can't play from there. I can't do that." When their body and their brain is telling them that's the way you naturally swing the club. So what they do is they spend all their time trying to get that club head pointing way over here, assuming that's going to fix all this, and it doesn't. Because when a player's in this position, it's a human body. It's not a machine, so it can go all kinds of places. Because it's across the line does not mean it's going to be over the top. She happens to circle and unwind and know how to keep the club head up and behind the hands and circle her body in their communication. She knows that, and she understands that. But a normal player would, they might take their hands and pull straight across probably, and they would spin their body radically from here or whatever, tip the club head straight down, flip it straight down towards the ball. All these things, and my point is they could do the opposite of that. They can do whatever. It's human body. So the goal is that you have to know that you're in the downswing you're trying to get in the first part we talked about where your hands get shoulder height. You want to see them matching up. What I consider perfect would be like right there. I mean that's that. So very. And again, like we saw earlier, delivery angles can be different. and we get to the middle, this is where it becomes, in my opinion, a little bit more serious. Right on the money. And then the baseline is the money. So, and I'm talking about when we're doing this, we're certainly talking about looking at some angles where the club is relative to the hands and all that talking. But it's also like that's the discipline, what we call discipline of the club. But then if you look at that circular movement of the body, those have to be wired together, and she understands. I like to look at some of the most odd golf swings or the most efficient ball strikers because they could care less about what their backswing is. They know the only thing that matters is it's not I'm not even talking about impact. They just know that when they start the club down, that becomes the most important part of the golf swing. Impact is more of a function of what they've done in this zone from here. When they got here, this is the recovery zone whether you have a good backswing or not. You have to recover one way or the other. And everything's got to be in full communication here. So anyway, that's why I like odd golf swings because they don't care about it. They just know that their goal is to get everything to go through the ball and create the most energy, the most torque from the club face to the ball.
Matt, you said impact is a function of what?
So impact is a function of the communication of these three, right? So it's this and the sweet spot and the upper body and the lower body. It's just a function of sequencing those up, right? If it was isolated down to what's most important out of all that, it's your hand to club. I mean, you can have your body stall and do some stuff, and if you're good enough with your hand eye, you can still play, right? I mean, you're holding the club, so it's definitely trumps everything on the list. But when you're playing at the level we're talking about, at this level, it is the discipline of the club and then the body. There, you can just see that it's just connected. And you can tell that's her brain's not worried about where her backswing is. I can assure you that. It just thinks it's normal wherever it's at. In her mind, she thinks it's perfect. Which then it's just like, okay, now deliver the club, body in the sweet spot. Anything else? We'll take a look at Davis' love here and then we'll wrap it up if there's no more questions. But this is a really neutral swing. Davis always had a really neutral swing, as you'll see. It's really clean. There's exactly what we're talking about. That would be considered perfect. Halfway down. It's close. Inside the ball. Through the middle of the spine. You can see how solid that is. Baseline, there's your baseline. So right there's your, kind of goes through the frame, but club head up and behind. Delivery. Again, if you look at face rotation, you can see probably a little more than what he'd like. That's not a lot of face rotation, especially if you look at amateurs through this area, but that's still really solid right there. He's probably playing just a shade, looks like a little bit of a draw. And maybe dead straight, the ball's already really good there. All right. So, you guys have any questions over anything tonight? All right. So I don't know if we'll do next week or not. Probably will. I know we're going to do 2 a month for sure. But I meant to do this one more about the visuals that we talked about last week, where we play it and just let them run and all that stuff, and show the float or the slow down effect, the float, and then some of the components. But the reason why we didn't do that is because I had some questions on like optimal delivery into the ball. Some of the guys that sent questions in, I don't even know if they're on here or not, but and I just wanted to show you that even when I'm talking about tonight, if anything, I know there's a lot of stuff on here, but you really have. This should give golfers a lot of hope, because if you can keep it, all you got to do is keep it in that area. And if you can keep it in that area, then it's just a matter if you have automatic hands, and that's what our whole program is based around. So um, that's the range that you have, and a lot of this has to do with the natural style that you swing the club in. If you're a steep player, you're going to be up here on this top green line. If you're a shallow player and behind, it does either one of these doesn't mean that you're going to be a good player or bad player. It just means that you kept the club. But if you're out away from that, that's a no-go. So the first goal is just to make sure that you're in between these lines. Neutral would be like you'll see him, and literally right in the middle of that, right? That's why we call it neutral, because that's right in the middle. But the range is huge here. So um, keep it in there. That doesn't mean again that you're doing it, but if you can learn how to um, build automatic hands where the right hand doesn't rotate over prematurely and doesn't cast away, and we'll be doing that as we go along. That's for sure, because that's really the basis of the program. Um, you do have to keep it in between those lines, but more importantly is in here is that you have it here is that you know that the club where that club is, and when you go to play, you're not going to really know. You just turn back and you turn through. When you're in training, you need to know where that golf club is, especially in the delivery zone. So when you get down in this zone right here, when you're in training, you need to be feeling what's going down when it's going right in through here. Is it am I pivoting around? Am I spinning out? Am I stopping? Am I flipping? Am I standing up? Am I doing all the above? What am I doing? And you have to dial into that, and you just start smoothing that out, just like we saw in those chip shots of those pros. And then as you start to get that developed, where you start to see it sink in and you feel it and everything's connected, then what will happen is when you start to turn your swing loose and you let it go, you just turn back, turn through, you're going to feel like we talk about all the time, which is it's automatic hands. So they're just on autopilot. You're not trying to manipulate and save the shot. So that's it for me tonight, unless there's anything else. All right, thanks, Lance. All right, you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you next week. And good luck with your golfing.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, no problem. Take care.